German Shepherd stops thieves from robbing a store. The unbelievable heroism will leave you in awe. Picture a quiet evening in Redwood, a small town known for its towering trees and neighborly spirit. The streets lie empty, illuminated only by flickering street lamps, while a faint hush settles over the community. At the local Safeway, shelves are neatly stocked and the doors are moments from closing. Unbeknownst to everyone, a life-changing event simmers just beyond the threshold. In the hush of dusk, a loyal German shepherd named Max stands guard, unaware that the coming hours will spark a display of heroism beyond measure. Get ready to witness courage in its purest form, a tale that defies all expectation. Nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, Redwood was a town that lived up to its verdant name. Though small, it pulsed with a sense of community that offered warmth to every newcomer. The Redwood Safeway, perched at the main intersection, was more than just a grocery store. It was a meeting point for neighbors, old friends, and curious passers-by. People would gather around the produce section to chat about weather changes, recommend homemade recipes in the bakery aisle, and offer fishing advice near the freezer. There was a distinct kind of magic in Redwood, a place where the simple act of picking up groceries became an opportunity to connect. Aaron Schultz was the manager of this Safeway. In his mid-30s, with a lean physique and a friendly, open countenance, he'd grown up in Redwood and loved its tranquil pace. Each morning before the store opened, he'd stroll through the empty aisles, mentally preparing for the day. He cherished the humdrum tasks, facing up shelves, polishing the counters, and greeting familiar faces. Life in Redwood felt predictable, safe, and comforting. But for the past few months, an unsettling tension had been brewing. Residents whispered about petty thefts around the town, unlocked cars rummaged through at night, a stolen bicycle or two vanishing from a front porch. They were small incidents compared to big city crime, but in Redwood, every piece of news traveled swiftly. Everyone felt a collective worry. Aaron had brushed it off initially, chalking it up to bored teenagers looking for a cheap thrill. His only immediate response was to add a couple more security cameras at Safeway and remind his employees to stay vigilant. The town itself was a tapestry of personalities. You had old Mr. McNally, a retired police officer who spent his free time reading detective novels in the park. He liked to talk at length about Redwood's peaceful traditions, beaming with pride that the biggest scare in the last decade had been a raccoon infestation. There was Mary Lee, the librarian, who believed Redwood was immune to larger troubles. She argued that the towering redwood trees and the unstoppable kindness of neighbors would keep the place safe. Nevertheless, the whispers about missing items persisted, creeping into daily conversation, making Redwood's bright aura flicker with hints of uncertainty. During one particularly quiet afternoon, just as the last winter snows were melting away, Aaron found himself unsettled. He had caught sight of a young man loitering near the back of the store. The man darted out as soon as Aaron approached. Nothing had been stolen, but something about the furtive posture, the hastily dropped box of cereal on the floor, and the suspicious glance over the shoulder had rattled him. Aaron wondered if this was an omen of something bigger. Still, Redwood was Redwood. It wasn't the kind of place where crime thrived. And so, while the small thefts were noted, most folks continued with their day-to-day lives. Spring was around the corner, so talk focused on the upcoming Redwood Flower Festival. The festival was the highlight of the year, showcasing the region's renowned orchard blossoms and boasting local produce, homemade baked goods, and community performances. Everyone looked forward to it. People smiled whenever the festival was mentioned, a hopeful break after a snowy season. But life has a way of surprising us when we feel most secure. The sense of belonging that Redwood residents enjoyed would soon be tested, revealing how even in the most familiar places, we can encounter unforeseen danger. And as fate would have it, the path of that danger would ultimately cross with that of a loyal German shepherd named Max, forever intertwining Redwood's story with his. No one could imagine that an unlikely friendship and an extraordinary night were already in motion, waiting to astonish the entire community and remind the world of what genuine heroism looks like. Before he became Redwood's four-legged hero, Max was just another rescue dog hoping for a second chance. He was found wandering the outskirts of a nearby city, alone and visibly underweight, with a jagged scar on his right ear that hinted at a difficult past. A local animal shelter named Hearts and Paws took him in, providing him with food, a safe place to sleep, and gentle human interaction he'd probably never experienced. Max displayed a quiet stoicism. He rarely barked, and when the volunteers came to feed him, he'd gaze at them with those deep, soulful eyes that spoke volumes about trust, lost, and yearned for companionship. Over time, the shelter staff discovered Max's intelligence. He learned commands quickly: sit, stay, come, even though fear still flickered in his eyes. With each passing day, that fear yielded to hope. He was, by all accounts, a perfect candidate for adoption if only the right person would walk through the door and recognize his potential. That right person turned out to be Aaron Schultz. He hadn't planned on adopting a dog. His visits to Hearts and Paws were part of an initiative he'd helped set up through Redwood Safeway, a monthly donation drive for the local shelter. The store provided everything from dog food to cleaning supplies. Aaron was there to deliver a fresh batch of goods when he locked eyes with Max through the chain-link kennel. Something in the dog's quiet dignity resonated deeply with him. In that single moment, their futures intertwined. After the drop-off, Aaron found himself lingering around Max's enclosure. "He's an incredible dog," said Margot, one of the volunteers. Her affection for Max was evident in her voice. "He's been through a lot, but he never gave up. One of the best we have here, smart, loyal, and so gentle once he trusts you." Aaron wasn't immune to that kind of authenticity. He'd always been a nurturer at heart, drawn to vulnerability and the possibility of building something strong from broken beginnings. The next day, he returned with forms in hand and adopted Max. At first, it was a cautious bond. Max had yet to fully trust this new person in his life, while Aaron, who lived alone, had never owned a dog before. But they navigated the learning curve together, long walks in Redwood's forests, evenings spent quietly sitting by the fireplace, and frequent visits to the local vet for checkups and vaccinations. Max adjusted to Aaron's schedule fairly quickly. Each morning, Aaron rose before dawn to get to Safeway, and Max would trot alongside him, tail wagging, always ready to explore. On the days Aaron had to stay late, he'd drop Max off at his small house with dog toys and a comfy bed. Something changed in both of them. Aaron felt a renewed sense of purpose, a desire to protect this loyal companion who looked at him as if he were the only human in the world worth trusting. Max, for his part, found security and a steady supply of food, both emotional and physical nourishment that replaced uncertainty and fear. It wasn't long before Max became a beloved fixture at Safeway. Aaron arranged with the store's higher-ups to allow Max in his office during administrative tasks, provided all customers were comfortable. Soon, employees took turns giving Max affectionate pats or sneaking him little treats. His proud stance and gentle demeanor reassured them that he was well behaved. Regular shoppers in Redwood began to recognize the friendly German shepherd who sometimes accompanied Aaron during breaks. People smiled at the dog. Kids would reach for his soft fur to say hello. Those fleeting interactions masked a deeper truth. Max was more than a pet, he was a symbol, a testament to resilience, an unspoken reminder that, even in trying times, second chances were possible. In Redwood, with its swirling rumors of petty crimes, Max came as a soothing presence. Who would have guessed that beyond his calming influence, a measure of unwavering courage lay dormant in him, poised to be discovered? That remarkable courage, in a bizarre twist of fate, would soon have an opportunity to shine. Danger that lurked beyond Redwood's carefree surface was inching closer, preparing to strike at the very store where Max spent his days. The calm before the storm was nearly over, and soon the entire town would come to know the German shepherd who went from rescue to rescuer. 2 weeks after Aaron brought Max into his life, Redwood's petty crimes took a sharper edge. Reports began circulating of nighttime break-ins at small businesses on the fringes of town. These weren't just teenage pranks anymore. Someone had stolen a cash register from a local diner and broken into the hardware store, escaping with power tools worth thousands. The easy serenity of Redwood started to crack. Most folks sought comfort in each other's company, doubling down on Redwood's trademark kindness. Neighbors volunteered to look after one another's homes. Parents walked their children to the bus stop in groups. Still, an air of unease lingered like a thin layer of frost that refused to melt even under the warm afternoon sun. In Safeway's back office, Aaron reviewed security footage from the store's cameras each morning. He didn't want to be paranoid, but something in his gut urged caution. Although Redwood had not yet experienced a violent crime, it didn't mean it couldn't happen. The sense of vulnerability grew more tangible with every unsettling report from the Redwood Gazette, the local newspaper that had started publishing weekly crime updates in a bold, concerned tone. Max, sensitive to the shift in atmosphere, patrolled the aisles with Aaron whenever he got the chance. Customers found comfort in the sight of the stately German shepherd, who, with perked ears and alert eyes, seemed ready to ward off any threat. For a dog that had once cowered under the weight of uncertainty, he now walked with purposeful confidence. Aaron noticed the difference too. Each morning when he hooked the leash onto Max's collar and led him into Safeway, the dog's posture radiated a kind of protective vigilance. The Redwood Police Department stepped up patrols around local businesses. Officer Ramirez, a kind-faced woman with a calm, authoritative presence, visited Safeway one day. She found Aaron in his office, organizing the store's finances. Max sat at his feet, watching her every move. She knelt down, offering her hand for Max to sniff. "He's a beauty," she said. "How long have you had him?" "Not long," Aaron admitted, leaning back in his chair. "He's from the shelter in the next county over, but I can't imagine life without him now." Officer Ramirez nodded, giving Max a gentle rub behind the ears. "Aaron, I want you to stay vigilant," she said. "We've had multiple break-ins in the last few weeks. They're targeting businesses with cash registers or expensive equipment, but you never know if they might try the grocery store next. We're keeping an eye out, but we can't be everywhere at once." Aaron thanked her, and that interaction only deepened his concern. He set about reinforcing the store's security measures, ensuring the back doors were locked at all times, testing the alarm system, and reminding employees to call the police if they noticed anything suspicious. Some staff members teased him about overreacting. "You're acting like Redwood is some big city," joked one of the junior managers, Marnie. "Relax, boss. We've got Max on our side." Beneath the jokes, however, was the same thread of disquiet. Every Redwood resident, from old Mr. MC, Nally to the librarians, now locked their doors at night. A row of motion sensor lights popped up along Main Street. Windows were fortified with sturdy bars. It was heartbreaking for many an admission that Redwood was no longer as carefree as it once was, that the outside world with all its hazards had seeped in. Despite his own anxiety, Aaron found a strange sense of solace in Max's presence. The dog never displayed aggression without reason, but he remained attentive, particularly at twilight, standing by the store's entrance as if on guard. More than once, Customers commented how secure they felt seeing Max with Aaron. "I just know nothing bad's going to happen in front of this big guy," quipped Miss S. Donovan, a regular shopper. She'd give Max a pat on the head before leaving, her cart full of groceries. But the unseen threat wasn't just a rumor or a collection of break-in stories in the Redwood Gazette. It was real, and as the days passed, it set its sights on bigger targets. The Redwood Safeway, rich in daily revenue, never short on customers, and located right off the main highway, was the perfect prize. No one could have predicted the turn of events that would unfold one moonlit night when Redwood's illusions of invulnerability would be shattered in one swift, terrifying stroke. And in that darkest hour, a dog named Max would stand as a beacon of courage no one could have foreseen. The Redwood Flower Festival arrived, bringing vibrant life to the town. Booths lined the main street, selling everything from honey-infused pastries to delicate hand-woven crafts. Children ran around in bright floral crowns. The sweet aroma of funnel cakes and kettle corn drifted through the air, and the local church choir performed uplifting hymns. For a few days, the tension of break-ins seemed to fade under the wash of pastel blossoms and communal joy. But not all shadows disappear under bright lights. On the outskirts of the festival, rumors continued to spread. A few suspicious strangers were spotted skulking around. One was overheard asking questions about store closing times. Another was seen snapping pictures of the Safeway's back entrance. As Redwood's attention turned to celebrating, an undercurrent of danger flowed quietly, weaving itself into the unsuspecting crowd. During the festival, Aaron was busy coordinating Safeway's food stall, an annual tradition where they gave out samples of new products and donated part of the proceeds to Hearts and Paws. Max, wearing a small bandana with the store's logo, dutifully sat beside him. This year's highlight was their fresh bakery bread and artisanal cheese selection. People came in droves, greeted by Max's gentle face, donating generously to the shelter fund. In stolen moments, Aaron's mind flickered back to Officer Ramirez's words. He'd installed additional motion, detecting lights around Safeway's loading bay earlier that week, yet he couldn't shake the unease that Redwood's big festival might also be the perfect distraction for thieves. Even so, the day passed without incident. Smiles replaced frowns, music drowned out murmurs of alarm, and Redwood's annual pageantry served its purpose. It reminded everyone, at least momentarily, of the tight-knit spirit that defined the town. Late that night, after the festival booths had closed down and the final bits of trash were being swept away, Aaron strolled with Max through the now quiet streets. In the absence of the festival's noise, the hush seemed amplified. Dim streetlights cast shifting shadows along the sidewalks. It was peaceful, but also strangely haunting, as if Redwood itself was holding its breath. Max's ears perked at every rustle, his nose twitching to pick up scents invisible to human senses. Aaron patted him on the head, drawing comfort from his companion's silent vigilance. When they arrived at Safeway's parking lot, Aaron was relieved to see the place undisturbed. The store had closed hours ago, the tall glass doors locked. Only a lone street lamp illuminated the entrance. He walked around the perimeter, Max at his side, using a flashlight to inspect each door and window. Nothing was out of place. Satisfied, he headed home, with Max curled up at the foot of his bed. Tonight, Redwood slept soundly, lulled by the day's festivities and the belief, however tenuous, that all was still well. The next morning brought a slightly different tone, as if the town were collectively nursing a hangover from the emotional highs of the festival. The Redwood Gazette ran an article about suspicious sightings. It detailed how two men had been asking about business hours and inventory in various stores, claiming to be from out of town. Several residents had also reported an unfamiliar van idling for long periods near some of the shops. Officer Ramirez was quoted, urging everyone to stay alert and not panic. Aaron read the article while sipping his morning coffee in Safeway's break room. A prickle of concern shot down his spine. Redwood wasn't used to outsiders asking so many pointed questions. Business owners were more prepared now. Some had installed alarm systems for the first time ever. Some were even discussing forming a neighborhood watch. Yet no one wanted to stoke undue fear. In Redwood, fear was still a foreign emotion, easily brushed aside by the more comforting familiarity of neighborly trust. However, the stage was set. The festival's cheerful veneer had started to peel away, revealing that Redwood was on the brink of a more significant confrontation than it had faced in decades. Aaron found his heart racing as he closed the newspaper, a sense of dread pulsing in the back of his mind. In the next aisle, Max lay patiently, occasionally flicking his ears at the hum of the cooling units. The German Shepherd's presence was a steady reminder that even in the face of looming uncertainty, loyalty and love could stand strong. Aaron tried to shake off the negativity, focusing on the day's tasks, preparing the store for the next wave of customers, replenishing shelves, and making sure employees felt safe and informed. But he couldn't completely ignore the echo of those whispered rumors, nor the knowledge that Redwood had become a tempting target. And while no one could predict the exact day or hour, trouble was indeed on its way, creeping ever closer to the doors of Redwood Safeway. Tuesday nights at Redwood Safeway usually meant a slow trickle of customers stocking up on midweek essentials, a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, maybe some fresh fruit, or last-minute dinner ingredients. Aaron had scheduled fewer staff for that evening shift, only himself, Marnie, and 2 part-time employees, Damon and Christine. The store would close at 9:00 p.m., giving them just enough time afterward to restock shelves and ensure everything was spotless for the morning rush. Max lounged in Aaron's office, occasionally getting up to stretch and wander the aisles. A faint drizzle tapped at the windows, the winter rainfall returning in a shy drizzle. Outside, the neon Safeway sign glowed a comforting red, illuminating the parking lot in a gentle halo. Throughout the day, Redwood had seemed caught in a subdued lull. The newspaper's warnings had grown more urgent, but life went on. Customers smiled a bit more warily now. Casual small talk often circled back to the latest rumors. Had anyone seen that suspicious van? Was Redwood's sense of security unraveling? Despite these concerns, the town remained resolute. People believed that the worst that could happen was more petty theft, not a full-blown crime spree. Shortly before closing, a last burst of activity arrived, a few regulars scrambling to grab items they'd forgotten. Aaron assisted them at the register, offering friendly banter and a genuine smile. Max padded around, collecting pats and ear scratches. Marnie handled the produce section while Damon was stocking shelves. Christine was in the back room, sorting inventory. At 9:05 p.m., the store's fluorescent lights were half-dimmed, signaling that it was closed to shoppers. Marnie and Damon finished assisting the final customer out. Christine locked up the back door after placing the final boxes in the storeroom. Aaron headed to his office to finalize the day's accounts. The routine felt comfortingly familiar. Every staff member knew their role, and Redwood rarely demanded more than this straightforward ritual. That was when Max's low growl first broke the silence. From his corner in the office, the German Shepherd lifted his head, ears pricked, eyes focused on something. Aaron froze, uncertain what had triggered the dog's sudden alertness. Max stood and moved toward the door, his posture tense. "You hear something, boy?" Aaron murmured, laying aside the paperwork and reaching for the set of keys on his desk. Aaron followed Max through the aisles, where Marnie and Damon were chatting softly as they arranged a neat row of canned soup. "Everything okay?" Marnie asked, noticing the intensity in Max's stance. Max let out another low rumble, heading toward the store's entrance. Outside, the parking lot was dark, save for a few lights. Aaron saw nothing unusual, no cars, no movement. Yet the dog's instincts insisted something was off. In Redwood, it was easy to dismiss any sense of alarm as overreaction, but from the story of how Max was found and rehabilitated, Aaron had learned to trust the dog's instincts. He unclipped the leash from his belt loop and attached it to Max's collar. "Damon, Marnie, get Christine and lock the doors behind me. I'm going to take Max out for a quick look." The staff nodded, a flicker of worry in their eyes, and hurried off. Redwood's store routine, rarely interrupted, was momentarily thrown off kilter by the dog's quiet urgency. Aaron stepped outside with Max, scanning the lot. The drizzle had picked up to a steady rain. Darkness curled at the edges of the lamp-lit asphalt, making it difficult to see past the halo of light. Max sniffed the air, then tugged gently on the leash, directing Aaron's attention toward the far end, where a line of trees separated the lot from a seldom-used side road. Though he saw nothing concrete, a chill danced down Aaron's spine. Was it just the cold rain or something else? Max stood taut, his muzzle raised, apparently evaluating the scents. Seconds stretched, an uneasy quiet sitting heavily. Then, slowly, the German shepherd relaxed. Whatever threat he sensed had moved away, at least for the moment. Aaron walked back inside, heart still pounding. Marnie locked the door behind him, flicking the switch to close the electronic shutters on the entry. He gently set a hand on Max's head. "It's okay, buddy," he reassured, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to calm more, Max or himself. Marnie and Damon exchanged glances, uncertain, but they didn't question it. If Redwood had taught them anything, it was not to doubt the bonds they'd built, be it with their neighbors or a watchful German shepherd. As the team finished their closing duties, a sense of unease lingered in the fluorescent-lit aisles. The store felt oddly silent, like it was holding its breath, bracing for something. Aaron glanced outside one last time before shutting off the main lights. The drizzle sparkled under the street lamp, and the emptiness felt ominous rather than peaceful. He tried to shake off the feeling this was Redwood after all. He'd spent his entire life here without major incident. Tonight was likely no different from any other. But deep down, he knew Redwood wasn't the same, and a night that started as ordinary was about to become anything but. Soon, the words of Officer Ramirez, the fearful whispers in the Redwood Gazette, and Max's warning growl would converge into a single moment that would test not just Redwood's sense of security, but Aaron's faith in loyalty and love and a dog's capacity for heroism. It happened the next night. All the tension, the whispered rumors, Max's instincts had culminated in an instant that was both shocking and surreal. Aaron had left the store at the usual time, just after 9:30 p.m., with Max at his side. Marnie had offered to close up fully, so Aaron could get some rest. Redwood had lapsed into its familiar, sleepy calm, and the drizzle from the previous night cleared to reveal a moonlit sky. The only sounds on the roads were the hum of street lamps and the occasional car passing through. Around midnight, the security alarm at Safeway shrieked into the stillness, shattering Redwood's slumber. Within minutes, Officer Ramirez was on the scene, lights flashing. The glass door at the store's entrance was shattered. Inside, there were clear signs of forced entry, scattered boxes, toppled displays, and the clang of something metallic echoing from deep within the aisles. A van was parked in the back, engine running, headlights off, clearly preparing to load stolen goods. Max startled awake at home, letting out a series of barks that startled Aaron out of a near sleep. In that adrenaline-fueled moment, Aaron's phone buzzed. It was the store's automated system, sending an emergency alert about a break-in. Heart pounding, he grabbed his keys and Max's leash, rushing to his car. Max leaped into the passenger seat. Even in the chaos, Aaron found it remarkable how Max sensed something dire was happening, muzzle pressed to the window as though readying himself for battle. By the time Aaron arrived at Safeway, Redwood PD had created a perimeter around the building. Officer Ramirez and two other officers stood behind their patrol cars, scanning the store's interior with flashlights. One figure, presumably a thief, darted past the broken door and fired a warning shot into the air. That dreadful crack ricocheted through the night, sending tremors of disbelief through the small crowd of onlookers that had gathered. Aaron's heart nearly stopped. Gunfire in Redwood? This was unthinkable. The figure yelled something to an accomplice still inside, then dashed back in. Shouts echoed, and the alarm continued its relentless shriek. Without thinking twice, Aaron unbuckled his seatbelt, and Max scrambled onto his lap, whining to get out. Officer Ramirez spotted Aaron. "Stay back!" she shouted. "They're armed!" A mixture of dread and determination coursed through him. He knew Redwood's police force was small, only a handful of officers, most unaccustomed to dealing with armed robberies. They'd already radioed for backup from the county sheriff, but response times were slow out here in the hills. From inside the store came the screech of a metal loading bay door. The thieves were trying to break open the locked compartments containing tobacco products, liquor, and a small safe with store earnings. Another shot rang out. Aaron winced, eyes darting to Max, whose hackles were raised. "I can't just stand here," he muttered. Everything happened in a whirlwind. Unwilling to risk a hostage situation or a standoff, Officer Ramirez was formulating a plan to negotiate. But the thieves, apparently spooked by the alarm and the arrival of multiple police cars, seemed desperate. They knew every second that passed meant a greater chance of capture. They had come prepared, wearing masks, armed with at least one handgun, and apparently determined to grab as much as they could before fleeing. Aaron inched forward, calling out to them. "There's no need for violence. The police are outside, and you can still walk away," he shouted, hoping to avoid a tragedy in Redwood's beloved grocery store. A frantic reply came. "We just want the safe opened. Do it, or we start shooting again." Fear coiled in Aaron's stomach. If they got the money from the safe, would they simply leave, or would they hurt someone? Amidst the tension, Max barked, pawing at the ground. Aaron could see the dog's focus was pinned on the inside of the store, something primal, a caretaker's instinct for the place, and people he loved burned in his brown eyes. The bond between them pulsed with electricity. This dog, who once had no home, was now prepared to guard the one that had welcomed him. Then, as if time slowed down to a heartbeat's whisper, one of the thieves rushed toward the main entrance, a duffel bag in hand. Another masked figure was behind him, rummaging through the cash register. Officer Ramirez's voice blasted from a bullhorn, urging them to surrender. In response, the lead thief pointed his gun toward the entrance, threatening to fire at the police if they moved. Aaron felt panic twist in his chest. The tension was at a breaking point. Redwood's innocence hung in the balance, on the verge of shattering irreparably. Then, in a single fluid motion, the lead thief turned to run back inside, evidently planning to gather more loot or force open another locked container. This was the moment that changed everything, when fate placed Redwood's safety in the jaws of a rescue dog who'd known only a few months of true belonging. Max, reacting faster than thought, lunged. The leash slipped from Aaron's grip, and in a blur of fur, Max raced inside the store, barking in a deep, resonant timbre. Aaron shouted his name, but it was too late. The dog, who had once cowered in an alleyway, now charged headlong toward the threat, all for the sake of protecting the people he loved and the community that had taken him in. The night split open with barking, shouting, and the frantic scramble of feet. Redwood's unthinkable crisis had escalated, and a single, selfless act by a German shepherd named Max would set in motion a chain of events that would forever redefine heroism for everyone who bore witness. The moment Max barreled through that shattered doorway felt like an eternity compressed into seconds. A swirl of adrenaline, fear, and disbelief enveloped Aaron and everyone on the scene. The dog's bark echoed off the aisles, a defiant roar shaking the deserted store that had once held only the rustle of grocery carts and subdued overhead music. Inside the store, the lead thief lurched in surprise. He spun toward the dog, gun raised, eyes wide behind the mask. In that heart-stopping instant, Max lunged, jaws snapping down on the thief's arm. A yelp of pain followed, the gun clattering to the floor. The second thief, standing by a row of shelves, watched in stunned panic. Outside, Officer Ramirez and her colleagues rushed forward, but the broken glass, scattered debris, and the thieves' possible second weapon made every step a measured risk. Aaron, ignoring the calls to stay back, followed them closely, his every thought centered on Max. Dread pounded in his veins, warring with a fierce surge of pride for the fearless German shepherd. The lead thief tore free from Max's grip, his sleeve shredded. He kicked at the dog, staggering backward. Max nimbly dodged, poised and ready to strike again. Blood stained the thief's sleeve and fear radiated in his eyes. For a split second, Redwood's entire world hinged on whether this desperate man would attempt to retrieve his gun or flee. The second thief began to brandish a crowbar, hollering something unintelligible. Yet Max, embodying an unwavering protective spirit, growled again. The thieves, confronted by this relentless canine and the pressing threat of the police closing in, suddenly realized they were out of options. The second thief threw the crowbar at Max, missing by mere inches. Instead of continuing the fight, both men bolted toward the back exit, hoping to reach their waiting van. But Redwood's law enforcement, alerted by the chaos, had circled around. The thieves found themselves cornered. While they stumbled toward the loading dock, Officer Ramirez and two other officers stormed the store, guns drawn. "Hands in the air, now!" she yelled, her voice echoing. Realizing escape was impossible, the men raised their arms, one still wincing from his injured forearm. The police subdued and handcuffed them as adrenaline soared and relief washed through everyone present. Aaron sprinted to the aisle, where Max stood, panting and watchful. Glass shards and overturned merchandise littered the floor. The store's alarm still blared, mixing with the crackle of police radios. "Max! Are you okay, buddy?" Aaron asked, voice tight with worry. He crouched down, running his hands over the dog's fur. Remarkably, aside from a small scratch, Max appeared unharmed. The dog looked up at Aaron, eyes alight with that indomitable canine love, as if to say, "We did it. We protected our home." A flurry of activity followed. Officer Ramirez shouted orders for the alarm to be turned off, for backup to clear the entire store. A paramedic was called in case anyone was seriously injured. The thieves were led out in handcuffs. Heads hung low. Outside, a small crowd of onlookers that had gathered in the darkness let out a spontaneous cheer when they saw the men in custody. Redwood, for the moment, was safe. Amidst the chaos, Aaron cradled Max's face in his hands, tears of gratitude lining his eyes. He was surrounded by the mess of broken glass, scattered produce, and empty aisles that had once been filled with Redwood's daily hum. Yet in the center of it all was an overwhelming sense of relief. Marnie, who had arrived after hearing the alarm, rushed to them, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "He saved us," she murmured, stroking Max's muzzle. "He really did." "Yeah," Aaron managed, voice choked with emotion. He did. For the next hour, Redwood PD took statements, photographed the scene, and collected the thieves' weapons as evidence. The store's lights gleamed harsh and fluorescent, revealing the extent of the damage. Broken doors, smashed security cases, and littered shelves indicated just how brutal this attempted robbery had been. Yet, as employees gathered, the talk soon shifted away from the damage to the miraculous event they had witnessed. In Redwood's darkest hour, a German shepherd named Max had become the unlikeliest hero, rising from rescue dog to fearless defender. At the edge of the store, beyond the flicker of police lights and curious neighbors, Redwood's night sky bore silent witness to the community's relief. The swaying shadows of towering redwood trees seemed to bow in quiet reverence. The moon, still bright and unclouded, cast silver across the shattered glass, as if offering a gentle benediction that Redwood would heal, and that heroes sometimes come in the form of a dog with soulful eyes and a heart big enough to protect an entire town. The day after the attempted robbery dawned over Redwood with an odd mix of somber reflection and triumphant pride. Word spread like wildfire, carried through phone calls, text messages, and every social media feed in the vicinity. By midday, reporters from nearby counties were making their way into town to capture the story of the hero dog of Redwood Safeway. Headlines ranged from the sensational Ferocious Guardian in one local paper to the more measured coverage by the Redwood Gazette, which simply read, "German Shepherd Saves Redwood Store." The damage to the Safeway was significant but fixable. Contractors arrived early to replace the shattered glass doors and clear the debris. Employees worked together, sweeping up broken items and salvaging any merchandise that was still usable. Aaron supervised the cleanup, though he was frequently pulled aside by townspeople wanting the full account. Their eyes lit up when he recounted how Max had bravely intervened, disarming the thieves and giving the police enough time to corner them. Each retelling left Aaron both proud and emotionally drained. The surreal images of Max's swift actions played in his mind on repeat. For his part, Max handled the sudden attention with characteristic calm. The dog was more intrigued by the bright camera flashes and new visitors to the store than frightened. Occasionally, he wagged his tail at people snapping photos, an action that made them laugh and quickly turned the lens on him again. Between the commotion, Aaron found quiet moments to gently check over Max, ensuring he hadn't been injured. With every assured pat on his flank, Max responded with a contented gaze, as if reaffirming that he'd do it all again to protect those he loved. Officer Ramirez stopped by in the afternoon, approaching Aaron outside the store. She wore a smile, though her eyes were heavy with the seriousness of what had transpired. "I've seen some brave acts in my day," she told him, "but that dog, there's something special about him. We're just lucky no one got hurt more seriously." Aaron nodded, glancing down at Max, who was lying at his feet. "I still can't believe he did that," Aaron confessed, running a hand through his hair. He seemed to know exactly what to do, like some protective instinct took over. "It was more than instinct," Officer Ramirez said, her voice soft. "It was loyalty, love, and maybe something deeper, like he knew Redwood was the place that saved him. He was just returning the favor." Inside the store, a hush fell as Marnie, Damon, and Christine carefully worked their tasks. The shock of the break-in still lingered. Marnie shivered whenever she walked past the spot where the gun had been dropped, remembering how the thieves had pointed it toward them. Damon, usually bubbly, was subdued, taking frequent breaks to steady his nerves. Christine piled up the debris with a grimace, aware of how close they'd come to something far worse. But within that somber mood was also a sense of gratitude. They'd survived. Redwood's cherished Safeway would remain a pillar of the community. And the dog they'd welcomed into their midst had shown unwavering courage. Even Redwood's mayor, a kindly older woman named Edith Ward, arrived to survey the aftermath. She took one look at Max, crouched low to meet him face to face, and burst into tears. "Thank you," she whispered, as though the dog could comprehend every syllable. "Thank you for saving us." That night, with most of the store patched up enough to reopen the next morning, Aaron returned home, bone-tired. Max trotted beside him, seemingly just as exhausted. Once inside, Aaron collapsed into his living room recliner, and Max curled up at his feet. The living room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the furnace. They were home, at last. Aaron struggled to process the whirlwind of events. One day, Redwood was a peaceful town. The next, it was the site of an armed robbery turned dramatic rescue. Max had risked his life. He could have been shot, Aaron thought, burying his face in his hands. The notion of losing Max hit him with staggering force. The dog had grown into not just a companion, but a beacon of hope and unconditional love. In that hushed moment, tears welled in Aaron's eyes. He reached down to ruffle Max's ears. "You're my hero," he whispered, his voice trembling. Max lifted his head, gazing with that profound canine devotion. Aaron felt something expand in his heart, a mix of relief, admiration, and an understanding that, from here on out, life in Redwood, and for both of them, would never be quite the same. Their bond had been tested in a crucible of fear, and it had emerged stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Redwood was awash in a combination of relief and apprehension. Relief that the thieves were caught and no one was seriously hurt. Apprehension that such brazen criminal activity could happen in their small town. While Redwood had not lost its soul, the break-in served as a stark reminder that evil could rear its head anywhere, even amid the scenic tranquility of leafy groves and neighborly smiles. Safeway reopened 3 days after the incident, once repairs had been completed on the main entrance. Aaron had insisted on paying overtime to any employee who volunteered to help with the cleanup. He felt responsible, as though he had failed to protect them by not anticipating the criminal's next move. His staff, however, reassured him that none of them blamed him for the invasion. In fact, they praised him and Max for preventing a possible tragedy. That unwavering support was Redwood's way of life. They faced hardships collectively, forging deeper bonds in times of adversity. The Redwood Gazette ran an in-depth story, detailing every significant moment of the break-in, the thieves' infiltration, Max's intervention, and the subsequent arrests. Interspersed were interviews with locals who praised the dog's bravery. The piece was titled "Safeway's Guardian: How a Rescue Dog Rescued Redwood." It became the talk of the town, and not a day went by that someone didn't approach Aaron, wanting to hear the story firsthand. Every small community needs a hero, and we found ours in Max. Read the editorial, penned by the Gazette's editor-in-chief, who had grown up with Aaron. Despite Redwood's typical reluctance to sensationalize, the entire ordeal had become emblematic of resilience, galvanizing a spirit of unity that even Redwood hadn't seen before. In parallel, Redwood's police force ramped up efforts to ensure something like this wouldn't happen again. They organized night patrols, neighborhood watch groups, and installed better street lighting along the dimmer roads. While some long-time residents grumbled about Redwood losing its small-town charm, others conceded that these measures were necessary in changing times. But the biggest shift was in how Redwood saw Max. The dog had always been a gentle presence at Safeway, but now he was a local celebrity. Children pointed excitedly whenever they spotted him. Customers snuck him treats, ignoring Aaron's pleas that he was already spoiled enough. And among the staff, there was an unspoken reverence for the dog that had confronted armed criminals. Even the mildest cynic had to admit it was extraordinary. With the store reopened, Aaron returned to his daily routine, managing deliveries, overseeing staff schedules, and checking in on customers. But he couldn't forget the image of Max lunging at an armed thief, nor the haunting possibility of how it might have ended differently. Those thoughts weighed heavily on him. Sometimes he'd stay late, standing at the front entrance after close, gazing out at the parking lot. Max would sit at his feet, ears perked for the slightest hint of danger. Nothing unusual ever happened, but the memory kept them both vigilant. Though Redwood's collective morale improved, scars remained. Marnie, who'd witnessed the robber pull the trigger, found herself tense any time someone rushed into the store unexpectedly. Damon, who handled the back storeroom, now locked every door, even when he was just a few feet away. Christine insisted on taking a self-defense class in the next county. These changes weren't negative per se. They indicated that Redwood was learning to protect itself in a world that could be unpredictable. Over time, Redwood steadied. The shock of the robbery dulled, replaced by a deep appreciation for the relationships that held the town together. At Safeway, employees arrived each morning with fresh resolve, reminding themselves to greet customers with the same warmth that had always been Redwood's hallmark. They had survived a jarring violation and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose, to never let the town's core values be overshadowed by fear. And in that healing process, Max continued to occupy a central role. People yearned for signs of goodness, evidence that not all was lost. And there he was, a once abandoned German shepherd who had found a new life among them. His story spoke to Redwood's resilience, underscoring that even when darkness struck, there were always those ready to stand up and protect what mattered most. In quiet moments, Aaron would think back to Max's first night in his home, the uncertainty in the dog's eyes, the fear that came from not knowing if he would ever find a true family. Now, watching Max doze peacefully by the warm glow of the living room lamp, it was evident how far they'd both come. Their partnership had evolved from mere companionship to something far deeper, a shared purpose. They had each saved the other in different ways, and Redwood was all the richer for it. Chapter 10 and 11 combined 500 words as the months passed after the store's attempted robbery. The town of Redwood found itself at a crossroads of relief and apprehension. While many were grateful that the perpetrators were caught, others mourned the loss of trust that once made Redwood feel almost impervious to crime. A new vigilance wove its way into everyday life. Neighbors locked their doors at night, and watchful eyes peered through freshly installed security cameras. Yet the adversity fostered unexpected connections, uniting families who'd never before shared more than a passing wave. Together, they organized neighborhood watch programs, forging stronger bonds under porch lights that glowed into the late hours. Meanwhile, at the Safeway, the staff took pride in rebuilding the store's welcoming atmosphere. They replaced shattered glass with sturdy doors and installed updated alarms, never forgetting the night that German Shepherd, Max, fearlessly stood his ground. Now, parents pointed at him with admiration, telling their children, "That's the dog who helped save Redwood." The store felt transformed, no longer just a mundane grocery destination, but a symbol of resilience. In the weeks that followed, Redwood's mayor recognized how Max's heroism had awakened the town's collective spirit. A simple ceremony honored him, with townspeople gathering to present Max with a shiny new tag that read Hero. Amid gentle applause, Aaron watched, overwhelmed by gratitude. Only a year earlier, Max had been a rescue dog burdened by uncertainty. Now he embodied the best of Redwood's unyielding heart. Aaron continued to manage Safeway with renewed dedication, ensuring employees felt safe and valued. He also volunteered at Hearts and Paws to help other abandoned dogs find a second chance. Encouraged by Max's success story, more families adopted pets, turning Redwood into a haven of wagging tails and hopeful eyes. Though not every dog would prove as dramatic a hero, each adoption echoed the town's firm belief in compassion. Gradually, Redwood settled into a new rhythm, neither naive nor fearful. People adapted to subtle changes, doors were locked more often, and the streets were better lit. Yet the kindness that defined Redwood flourished despite caution. No one forgot that danger could strike anywhere, but equally clear was the realization that unity, courage, and love could repel it. Late on a crisp autumn evening, Aaron and Max strolled side by side through Redwood's now quiet streets. Each glowing window represented a life touched by the German shepherd's bravery. Leaves rustled overhead, and Aaron paused, reflecting on how that single night had forever altered his perspective. Painful as it was, the break-in had revealed a bond between man and dog that transcended fear. With Max at his side, Redwood's guardianship felt tangible, built upon second chances and unwavering devotion. In the hush that followed, Aaron whispered, "Thank you, buddy," and Max leaned against him, tail wagging. Stepping forward, they continued home together, leaving footprints of trust in a place that had learned to cherish both its vulnerabilities and its heroes. And so, Redwood's future glimmered with resolve, guided by one courageous canine's legacy. That's the story of how one abandoned German shepherd named Max transformed into the guardian angel of a close-knit town. He taught us that bravery thrives where loyalty and love intertwine, turning an ordinary night into a defining moment for everyone involved. Max's legacy isn't just about stopping thieves, it's about the power of second chances, the magic of trust, and the unbreakable bond between a determined dog and the people who believed in him. If this tale inspired you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means we can continue to bring you the most uplifting and heartwarming stories. Help us spread the message that heroism comes in all shapes and forms, even from a dog with a scarred ear and a heart big enough to save an entire town. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more incredible stories.